What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel, and in today's video we're going to be releasing our very first slider set for Madden 23. This slider set aims to achieve a bit more realistic gameplay in the very unrealistic game of Madden, and we're going to see what we can do sliders wise in order to adjust the game to give us a bit more of a realistic presentation, realistic gameplay, realistic stats, all that type of good stuff. So make sure you stick around for the entire video and take a look at all the settings and stats that I'm going to give to you guys. Now, in order to have the most realistic gameplay within Madden 23, I had to do quite a bit of testing, and I bounced around from a few teams in order to get a feel for good offensive lines, bad offensive lines, good quarterbacks, bad quarterbacks, good receiving cores, you know, that type of stuff. So, with that being said, I ended on the 49ers, who is the team I'm going to be utilizing as in my 32-man league this year, and I felt like at the end of the day, utilizing the 49ers, I also utilized the Rams, and I also utilized a couple of other teams. With this final slider set, I ended up getting a pretty enjoyable gameplay that was giving me realistic results. I wasn't seeing a lot of the glitch interceptions, a lot of the kind of glitchy gameplay where linemen didn't know exactly where to go and block players and things like that. So this slider set, I think, is going to be very helpful for you guys, and at the very least, it gives you a place to start to adjust for your leagues, especially considering the roster update is going to be coming out here very soon, and a lot of leagues are going to be getting underway. The first thing that I want to go over is the settings that I decided to input for these sliders. So going into the league settings, we are playing on all Madden. My slider sets are pretty much always based on all Madden gameplay, simulation style gameplay, and then the only other thing that really matters here that I touched, and you guys can adjust these things as necessary as you guys would like to, is play call cooldown, play call limit, and then the time of quarters and Excel clock. So I put play call cooldown to 2, so you're going to have to wait 2 plays before you can call a play again. And then I put play call limit at 5. Again, this is going to be a league by league type of thing, but I feel like 5 is really a good limit to go off of, because that gives you a play per quarter plus 1 extra. Maybe if you go to overtime or you just really need that play at a certain crucial point in the game. And then quarter wise, I went to 8 minutes with 14-second Excel clock. A little asterisk that I want to put in here is if you want to have realistic snap counts, you're more likely going to want to be on 9 minutes or potentially even 10 minutes with a Excel clock this low, like 14 seconds or something like that, because you're going to get very minimal time pre-play to do any adjusting or anything like that, which I think is fantastic. That's one of the best things you can do to have a realistic franchise, is prevent people from adjusting too much pre-play. If you get people going out there making 10 adjustments, you're really starting to dive into MUT type of gameplay, competitive cheese type of gameplay, and that's just not what you want if you came to click on this video. So you're going to be looking at very, very quick Excel clock with very minimal time left on the clock for you to be able to utilize, and therefore you have to go higher on the quarter length in order to get a realistic, snap count and length of game. So then we're going on to the sliders, the gameplay sliders here. And I don't have any XP sliders for you guys yet, but I do have auto sub sliders that I'm going to be putting out in another video, because there's a whole lot of context that we have to give to those sliders individually as it stands. Now, these sliders are actually going to look quite a bit different than my sliders last year. I actually started off with base sliders. I then went to my sliders from last year, and I kind of compared, and I said, what do I like about the base sliders? What do I like about my sliders from last year in Madden 23? And I decided to wiggle around in between those things and adjust as necessary. So the very first one is going to be quarterback accuracy here for player skill. And this is going to be your user-controlled players. Your quarterback accuracy here is set to 25. Now, this might be the lowest that I've ever set it in a slider set. And to be honest with you, you're going to have a pretty good time no matter what quarterback you're using, even on 25 accuracy, especially with the new passing system. This makes the new passing system feel a little bit more necessary. It kind of works hand in hand with that new passing system. This is going to make it so that really low overall quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, things like that, are going to have a hard time being accurate consistently within the game. However, I also noticed that I could take a lower overall quarterback like Trey Lance Lance, or even the Rams backup Wolford or something like that, who's like, I don't know, I would assume a 50 or 60 overall, and I can still complete passes. You know, I can dink and dunk my way down the field if necessary. I'm just not going to be getting those pinpoint passes on the sideline unless I do a really, really good job with the new passing system. So 25, I've found, is actually really good for quarterback accuracy here. It gives me a really good discrepancy between very good quarterbacks and lower overall, not supposed to be very good quarterbacks within Madden 23. Then on the pass blocking side of things, the pass rush this year is very good. I actually really like that the pass rush hits home quick this year in Madden, but in order to take the edge off of that slightly, I have pass blocking up to 55. And the reason for that is I simply find that the pass rush gets there slightly too fast. It gives you just not enough time to hit passes that you should be able to hit out of a quick passing game. You know what I mean? So you should have to get good pass blocking to be able to hit deeper passing schemes and longer developing passing schemes. But in order to hit the quick passing game, the medium passing game, you should be able to take a couple step drop and get that ball out of your hand without really having a ton of pressure on you. So this just takes the edge off just slightly. The pass rush is still going to get in quick, and I like that about Madden this year. So you're going to have to deal with that pressure in your face, but this gives you just that little extra bit of time to try to get that ball out on some of that quick passing and medium passing game. Next up is wide receiver catching, which I usually take down one notch just because I feel like they make it a little bit too arcadey, even on simulation style gameplay, with receivers being able to go up and get just too many catches that they shouldn't necessarily be able to catch, especially if they're lower overall. Run blocking is up to 54. I really want to take this up higher because their run blocking schemes within this game are terrible. They don't know how to code linemen to block properly, but when you take it all the way up, I mean, I had it into the 60s, closer to 60, into the 60s, you just get defenders getting completely washed out of the play, getting completely bowled over. There's not really a good middle ground here. I tried everything from 50 up to like 65, 70, and there's just not a good middle ground. So what this does for you is it essentially gives you the crappy blocking, run blocking that Madden already has for you, but it just takes that edge off a little bit of them being completely useless, and so you do get a couple more blocks here and there that you wouldn't normally get on the base sliders. You occasionally now get your guys going up to the second level off of your double teams and stuff like that, and you occasionally get wide receivers actually throwing blocks on the outside, so this can be a little bit better of a middle ground, but it's not going to be perfect, unfortunately. And then true to form here, we have our fumbles set to 75. As always, Madden has way too many fumbles, and we have to take it all the way up to 75 to stop seeing fumbles consistently, and that's going to be the same for CPU sliders as well. I had this thing set to 70, and I was still seeing fumbles like, I don't know, every few plays, which is just absolutely nuts to me. I don't know why they think fumbles are so common, but they're just not, and we have to eliminate some of that from the game, especially with the hit sticking mechanic, which in my opinion is very unrealistic in and of itself. So until they get rid of that, we really need to make sure that we have fumbles up a bit. Where we get into the interesting thing is going to be the pass reaction time, the pass protection sliders, or pass coverage sliders rather. So last year we had pass defense reaction time and pass coverage up a lot, but again, this year in Madden, they changed the way the game plays, so you get very good pass coverage most of the time. Now, they have tweaked that down a little bit since the first release of the game, but what we decided to do here is take it down to 47, and what this does is it takes that edge off, much like I was talking about with the other sliders, of CPU players getting those glitchy interceptions, breaking off of one coverage and coming over and glitching across the screen to make an interception that a player would never make in real life. And likewise, allowing quarterbacks to fit balls into tight spaces and throw the ball over certain players' heads that aren't going to be able to jump up and make a spectacular interception. So we take the edge off a little bit by taking this down to 47. I actually had this at 48 and I was liking it quite a bit, and then all of a sudden I got a linebacker jumping 15 feet in the air to pick off a pass that was 10 feet over his head. So that one was really weird. So I knocked this down another point, and you know, that goes hand in hand with interceptions set to 3. Now unfortunately in this game it seems like interceptions are pretty much scripted. So the interception slider being set to 3 is going to eliminate the number of crazy interceptions that you get, but you're still going to see some unrealistic interceptions just based on how scripted and how animated these things are. It's unfortunate, but again, there's not really a good balance to be had there because of the way that they have designed gameplay up until this point. Now, what I did do is I took pass coverage up to 59, because again, what I like to see is I like to see defensive backs in the right place. I like to see them playing the ball, but I don't like to see them glitching across the screen to make those final interceptions and those final cuts on the ball. I like having it at 59. It gave me a good representation of defensive backs sticking with receivers, sticking to their zones, picking guys up, and being in the right position, but then not necessarily being able to make every single break on the ball, perfectly jumping across the screen and perfectly intercepting everything that was in their location. This is actually a really good balance from what I saw, especially with the 49ers and the Rams. I was able to fit balls into tight spaces without defensive backs automatically picking everything off that was coming in that direction. And then finally, I took tackling up to 56 for the user slider settings. This is just going to give you a little bit more ability to make tackles. I found that especially against the CPU, they get a lot of broken tackles, and so we needed to turn it up a little bit because it was like every tackle was being broken on the base slider of 50. And then we go down to CPU sliders. The CPU slider settings are going to be a little bit different for us this year as well. Quarterback accuracy, I'm leaving at 42. This is what it was on last year, but I think this actually gives us a really good balance of CPU quarterbacks being inaccurate from time to time and then completing passes and still being able to move their team down the field. We still want the CPU to be able to be competitive if you are playing them in a league, and we certainly want them to be able to move the ball. So 42 I found is a good balance, and in conjunction with that, we are talking about some of the other sliders working hand in hand with it. So we took pass blocking all the way down to 26, and this is one where the CPU gets a major advantage. It feels like you can almost never sack a CPU quarterback unless you're running a glitch blitz or a nano blitz or something like that. That shouldn't be the case. If we're getting pressured just based off of a 4-man defensive line quickly, so should the CPU. So we took it down to 26 here, and I think this is spot on to where it's putting pressure on those CPU quarterbacks and occasionally forcing bad throws and occasionally forcing incomplete passes. You will also occasionally see sacks on this 26 pass blocking for the CPU. Wide receiver catching, we just mirror the users catching. Again, we feel like they just get slightly too many catches, some catches that they shouldn't get, so that's down to 49. Run blocking here for the CPU, I want to turn this way up, like I said, for the users as well. In past years, we've turned this way up to give the CPU a competitive advantage, but unfortunately, what I noticed is it just results in the CPU washing everybody out of the play and getting these massive one-play touchdowns that even if you try to use or defend them, you can't really do anything about. So the 54 point is again, just giving them a little bit of an edge to be able to run the ball a little bit better, just like I said with the user setting. Fumbles for them, I had this at 65. I was still seeing fumbles constantly. I was getting hit stick fumbles nonstop. And then I turned it up to 70. I was still getting hit stick fumbles. I turned it up to 75, not getting fumbles as consistently, so I like what I'm seeing there. And then again, on the CPU skill side of things, we pretty much just put this at the same. I'm liking the 47 pass reaction time, the 3 interceptions, and the 59 pass coverage for the very same reasons. And their tackling is set to a base of 50. I didn't really see any reason that it needed to be changed. I was able to occasionally break some tackles, but more often than not, the CPU is pretty good at tackling the ball carrier. And then we get into a few more changes here. Field goal power, we took down to 48. I feel like last year I noticed too many players hitting super long field goals, and I've seen that a lot this year in Madden as well. So you feel free to, obviously adjust this as you guys need, but I want to start at 48 here and see if that limits the field goal range a little bit so we're not hitting as many crazy long field goals. And then field goal accuracy down to 45 to make it a little bit more difficult. Punt power down to 47. Punt accuracy down to 40. Again, the punting game in the NFL is honestly pretty weak across the board, and therefore we have to match that. And kickoff power up to 54 to force more kickoffs into the end zone, like what happens in real life. You actually have to try to kick it short if you want to. And then we have injuries set to 35, which might be a little bit high in some people's eyes, but I played a ton of games in franchise mode and saw very few injuries. So I I think that that's going to be more related to season progressive fatigue and things like that. I would even consider maybe raising this up, to be honest with you. Fatigue set to 70 so that you actually get players getting fatigued in the game, subbing in and out. Minimum player speed threshold we did not touch. And then the penalties here are a little bit different from last year. We left offsides at 85, which is what we had it on last year. We took false starts to 75, holding at 60, face mask is left to 50, and defensive pass interference set to 75. On these settings, you're going to notice actual penalties getting called from time to time, which is nice to have because, again, the NFL is penalty ridden nowadays. It's horribly officiated. I hate the way that referees control games these days, and it kind of ruins football for me, but nonetheless, we're going to see them. So if you want realistic gameplay, you kind of have to reflect that. One thing that I will comment is that I've seen a few kind of dumb, in my opinion, roughing the kicker, running into the kicker calls, and even on players that aren't user controlled and stuff like that. So I would consider turning these off if you are having issues with those types of things. But nonetheless, that is my settings and sliders for Madden 23 here early on before the week 1 roster update, so that you guys can have this prepared and ready for your franchises whenever that update drops and whenever you guys start your franchises. I do really hope that you guys found these sliders useful. Again, this is an initial slider set, so they're probably not going to be perfect and not everybody is going to love them. I know that a lot of people hate the 3 interception slider, but ultimately the interceptions in this game are unrealistic, and so we have to adjust for those things. So I do hope that you guys found these useful. Feel free to adjust them as you guys see fit. If you guys did enjoy this video or found it useful or are going to utilize these sliders, leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below letting me know. And I'll see you guys as always in the next video. I hope you have a good one.